All right. Hey, Erik, thanks for joining me from Idaho, all the way via Zoom. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man. Truly an honor,
Oh,
man.
oh yeah, pleasure. Now we got connected through April Metzler via Instagram. She's a podcaster out of Oklahoma,
Yeah.
and she didn't like just recommend you. She said, "Jerry, you need to interview this guy." And I was like, "Okay." And,
Sweet.
yeah, uh,
April's awesome.
she is. Yeah, I mean, if she throws a name your way, I mean, she's attaching her name to it, and it makes it easy because all you got to do is
Mhm.
say yes. And
Totally.
yeah, awesome. Now, my understanding is you've got two podcasts, Top Rated MMA, and the other one is the Erik Allen Show, which you started in 2019. And so I've caught a couple of episodes of that. And then, of course, you've been doing a podcast tour, and your goal was to be on 100 podcasts in the year 2021.
Yep.
And I'm happy to say I'm episode 104. Woohoo!
That is correct. Yeah. My 104th interview for the year is right now, man. This is awesome.
Nice. I love it. And I think what I love about it even more is, well, two things. One, you set a goal, you made it public, and then you pursued it. And that's a big theme that I often talk about on Beyond the Rut is the importance of having goals, writing them down, sharing them with some people you trust, and then going after it.
Yep.
And the other thing is that you didn't just stop at 100. You didn't stop short and say, 80 is good enough. I'm going to coast the rest of the year. You killed that goal and you kept the momentum going. And I think the first questions I want to kick off with was how important was it for you to make that a goal? And what have you found well, I'll start with that one. Why was it so important to make that goal, 100 podcasts?
So it was interesting. In 2020, I said, well, I want to be a guest on 50 podcasts. And I only did 26 interviews. And I was like, that sucks. I didn't even come close. Then I was like, okay, in 2021, I don't even want to do 50. I want to do 100. I'm going to double that. And I'm just going to make it happen. So 2021 for me was all about getting on as many podcasts as I can. One, because I wanted to hit that goal of 100. And I don't know why I picked that number. It was just like something I was like extravagant and it was really far reach. And I was like, I'm going to go for it because I do release 2 shows each week of my own podcast. So it was like, having to crunch in that time. And so, yeah, being able to do 100, man, this year, it's been awesome. So it's been a fun journey and we'll continue to go, man.
Yeah. And what were some of the things you did to help make sure you stayed on track to achieve that goal this year?
One, I made it public. I've been telling people ever since day one that I was going to do 100 podcasts this year. And that helped. A lot of people are like, hey, I've got a podcast. Come join me. Hey, I've got a podcast. Come join me. Right. And so it's been cool because every time that a show is released or an episode, is released that I was on, I shared out with my network. And so I'm like, hey, number 86 of 100, 47 of 100. Right. And so people who have been following me or connect with me, they see this journey and they like cheering me on the whole time. So it's been fun to see that. But also I love connecting with people, other podcasters, like, even if I'm not if I'm the guest, I just love connecting with other podcasters. So it's been fun to just meet 100+ new people that I would never have come in contact with.
I would say guest formatted shows, especially podcasts, probably like heaven for us extroverts. It's like to meet people. I get to learn new things through people. I get to
Totally.
Even though I'm sharing my story on your show, I'm learning about you and your show and your guests by doing that. And for me, that's probably one of my favorite ways to learn as somebody who's extroverted is, just connecting through people and seeing the world through their eyes in a sense. So that's really cool. And I love that you pointed out that you made, I think I said it too, but I mean, you just reinforced it that you made your goal public with folks you knew you trusted, which was like your tribe on social media, your email circles, your personal circles. And by doing that, you created this public accountability because, but you also made a public ask, like, this is what I'm striving to achieve. And other people who are podcasters are like, great, because I'm looking for a guest who talks about that.
Yeah.
Come on my show. And, like a lot of times we have no idea unless we give it a shot. We give it a go. It's kind of like how you met your wife, you never know unless somebody asks.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yep.
Now, I was also curious. I didn't get a chance to ask this before we hit record, but your first show, Top Rated MMA.
Yeah.
You see the beard. Now, those of you watching the video, you see the beard. Those listening, just take my word for it. He's got a beard that gives me envy because I'm half Asian and I can't grow a beard. Plus, I have a wife who doesn't like me to have facial hair because she met me in the Army. That's not important.
Okay.
Moving on.
Hey, well, thank you for your service, man. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
I'm stuck on the beard envy thing, though.
Okay.
So you look like, what I'm trying to get at is you look like an MMA fighter. But
Thank you.
and so, what is your connection to the MMA or that field, that sport?
I'm really just a, like super fan. I grew up. My dad would get pay-per-view of Mike Tyson when I was a kid.
Oh yeah.
I always watched boxing. My dad would take me to WWF events when I was a kid and local wrestling events. So, we saw the regional circuit. We saw the WWF, like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, British Bulldog, all those guys in that era. And it was amazing. And my dad would literally go rent movies that had no English at all, but they were ninja movies. So we would just sit there and watch movies and just like, oh my gosh, like ever since I can remember. So yeah, I think I was a ninja for Halloween for like 15 years straight, right? Like that was all I wanted to be, right? And so just always been a fan. It kind of evolved into MMA. And so in 2012, I was sitting around the house. I'm like, man, I really want to get involved in MMA. I don't want to get in the cage, but if I can be on the business side of stuff, because that's kind of my passion, how can I do that? And this is kind of the era of Tap Out. And I think there was a company called MMA Elite at the time, and big time. And I was like, all right, well, let's start a t-shirt company. And my wife came up with the name Top Rated MMA. And we said, how do we make ourselves different? And so we decided when we came out, we were going to be 100% American made. And we wanted to give back to the veterans, some organization. And at the time, Brian Stan, who was a fighter in the UFC, he started an organization called Hire Heroes USA, which helps transition veterans and their families with free job training and job placement. And we reached out to them. We said, hey, we want to partner with you guys. We want to be able to give back to you guys. And still to this day, almost, 10 years later, almost, we're still giving to those guys. And because we started Top Rated MMA in 2012, but we're still giving to those guys on a monthly basis. We give them a percentage of, our profits that we make each month. And we just love to partner back and give back. So that's kind of how that started. It was an apparel company for the first couple of years. And then in 2017, I actually started the podcast, really not knowing what I was doing. I was in a walk-in closet for almost 100 episodes, bad lighting, bad camera, bad microphone, didn't even look into the camera, like that type of thing.
I'm in a walk-in closet right now.
Nice. Yeah.
Nice. I've heard of Hire Heroes USA as well. It's something that pops up on my social media ads, and I've just come across the advertising here and there, and so it's really cool. I've met the guy who knows the guy behind that, so that's
right.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
The separation, right?
Yep, totally.
Now, your other show, the Erik Allen Show, is geared towards helping, I believe, entrepreneurs, realize their success and identify success and overcome a lot of their obstacles. What inspired you to get that show up and running?
So I've always been kind of entrepreneurship minded, right? Like I was the kid who had the lawn mowing business at 10 and 11 years old and stuff like that. So always had this entrepreneur spirit. But really in 2018, I came across a guy online named Ed Milet. And as soon as I heard him, I was like, dude, this guy is awesome. He's speaking to me. He's talking about my life. Yeah. And I just started sponge watching like everything like that he had put out on YouTube, everything. And got his book. By the way, it's an amazing book. It's like 95 pages. It's called Max Out. People need to go check it out.
Okay.
But so I started watching it, and then I was following him on Instagram. And then in 2018 or near the end of 2018, really, I decided to start the Erik Allen Show because of him. It was his inspiration that I started that show. And it used to be called The Bearded Biz, but my wife being the smart one said, hey, you're niching down too much. Let's change the name. So I changed the name to the Erik Allen Show. But in 2018, he issued a challenge on his Instagram to about 1 million followers at the time. He said, hey, submit a 1-minute story to me of what drives you to success. What's your passion? Like, why do you want to be successful? And I submitted a 1-minute story to him. And about a month and a half later, he announced me in a place called Camp Agape as the winners of this Max Out challenge that he issued. So I got to sit down via Zoom with Ed it was supposed to be 20 minutes. We ended up going 30 minutes, just him and I. And it was the greatest phone call ever. It changed my life. He was so genuine about being like wondering how he can help me out. He shut down all the distractions, that he had. And of course, sitting on his balcony of his porch with the ocean behind him. But it was the coolest thing to have this conversation with Ed. And that really kick things off because I was able to record that and release that as part of my episode. So that was episode 12 of my new podcast. Before that, I had Sean Whalen, and then it opened the doors to Tim Story and Brad Lee and Bedros Keuilian and, Eric LeGrand and, Jim the Rookie Morris, Dan Caldwell from Tap Out, Ken Shamrocks twice, like just open up massive doors.
Yeah.
And so that's what that show's about. I bring on these entrepreneurs. I really love to ask the question on both my shows. Like, I want to get the understanding from MMA fighters. Why do you want to get in a cage and get punched in the face? Right. And
yeah, why do they want to do that?
Right. And some people do it for fun. Some people are like, hey, I got a federal offense and I can't get a real job, but I can go fight someone and put food on my table.
Wow.
Right. But I ask the same question to entrepreneurs. Why do you as an entrepreneur want to get punched in the face? Hopefully not physically, but virtually. We get no's, we get rejected, we get failure, we go bankrupt. I have a bankruptcy, right? So but we keep going. What is that drive that pushes us through that? And so I love to highlight those stories and bring on entrepreneurs that are just real and then get it out there for folks and hopefully inspire and motivate people.
Yeah. When you were getting mentored, what were some things about that person's setting that just opened up your eyes to what could be?
With Ed, with my conversation with Ed, he talked about just always pushing hard. And he said one thing to me that I have on my wall right here. And he said, it's an acronym and it's CANI, CANI. And it says constant and never ending improvement. And so I have that on my wall. When I see that every morning when I get up and I'm looking at my vision wall that I created in my office, I see that and I'm like, every day I want to get better. And he always says, do one more rep, do one more phone call, get one more person, right? Like, so he really pushed that, like, keep pushing no matter what. You have to figure out how to zone everything out, all the distractions, and stay focused on your goal and continue to fight for that goal. Continue to fight for your dreams, man.
Yeah. That's how he maxes out.
Yep. Max out every time.
Oh man. That's
yeah.
Now, and in doing this show, the Erik Allen show specifically, how have you seen yourself grow from 2019 till now?
Massive, dude. And it's almost like it's selfish for me to get on a podcast and go talk to these amazing people. I'm like, I just want to soak in all this information, right? And then I'm like, oh, I can't, I got to share this out with the world. But like every podcast that I have, no matter who the guest is, MMA fighter, entrepreneur, whatever, it's like a mentoring session for myself, right? Like I go and when I go to edit the show, so I do everything myself. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking notes. Man, that was so good. Oh, that was awesome. Because sometimes I don't catch it during the show. And it's helped me to figure out my morning routines. It's helped me to figure out my mindset, who to surround myself with. Yeah. Like Ed talks real big about like, hey, real important. If you're stuck in a rut, right? Like if you're stuck and you're feeling like you can't go anywhere, or you're not doing as well as you want to as a husband or financially or provider or whatever it is, right? The way to get out of that is you have to go surround yourself with people that are living the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
So you go find someone in the church that's, has an amazing walk with Christ, or has an amazing marriage, or has an amazing business, right? And you just go surround yourself with them, and just being in their presence is going to motivate and make you want to lift yourself up. And that's what I did. I still do that today. I still go out to networking groups where I don't know anybody there, right? I just want to get uncomfortable, because if you can get uncomfortable, it's going to help you move in the right direction.
Yeah. There's somebody I know. She says that growth happens outside of your comfort zone.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is somebody I know who left Puerto Rico, no job, came to Texas, and just on a wing and a prayer, applied for jobs and went for the one that wasn't guaranteed, but showed the most promise for future growth.
Yep. And
she was just like, well, that's way out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to go for it. Well, she now works for me full time. So
come on, dude, that's awesome. That is awesome, man.
When I tell her story with her permission, it gets me choked up. I'm like, that is gutsy. And just her philosophy on life, like everything she's achieved in her life, there was a threshold where her comfort came to an end. And beyond that was where her growth was. And she just had to pull up her bootstraps and go for it, get out of her comfort zone. And every time it's paid off. There've been setbacks and stuff, but at 27, she's achieved more than anybody in her family expected.
Come on.
She's got a lot of future ahead of her too. So and that's for any of us. I mean, our growth is outside of our comfort zone. I mean, MMA fighters, they win matches because they're willing to push themselves that one rep more during their workouts, 1 minute more in the ring during sparring practice. And, and it pays off. It's that 10,000 hours of practice that makes you the expert. All those cliches are backed by logic and reason and proof. And it's just, totally makes sense.
Yep.
Now for those of us listening right now, we're probably thinking, well, Erik's got it going good. He's got 2 podcasts. He's an entrepreneur. He's making the income he wants. He's married. He's got kids. Life is good. Probably always was good for him. But I've done my homework, and I know that life wasn't always rosy and peachy and happy-go-lucky. And I would even venture to say, if you're human, life still isn't rosy, peachy keen. It's just better than what it was before.
Yeah.
Can you kind of take us through that journey of, so your parents at some point had gotten divorced. My parents divorced when I was 11.
Me too.
And it kind of, for me, opened up a hell for me when my parents split up. And it sounds like it was something similar for you. Can you kind of tell us about that past a little bit, just so we have context of where you really are today and that, and what you've overcome?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, my parents got divorced when I was 11 years old as well. I'd never heard the word. I didn't know anybody who had gotten divorced. I thought I had the typical household, right? American household. Like, we were going to Sunday school. I was playing Little League. My dad was like adventurer. He always wanted to take us out to the dump fields, and we'd go try to find treasure, right? Like, that's just a typical Saturday morning. And then when they got divorced, I was kind of shocked. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Because I never saw my dad like abusive to my mom or any of that stuff. So it was something that happened on the back end that I just didn't see as a kid. And when my mom got together with a man who was almost immediately, which I thought was kind of strange. So maybe there was something going on there. I don't know. But she got together with a guy that was very physically abusive. Even from the first time that I met him, he had hit her. And I was like, whoa. I'd never even thought about that. I never even thought about men ever hitting women. And then I saw that. I was like, whoa. And he continued to do that. And I would call the police. They would show up. They'd take him to jail, or my mom wouldn't press charges. And it got crazy, like all the time. They were at our house all the time. And then they did the smart thing, my mom and this dude, and got pregnant. And so they said, well, now we're just going to move to Stevensville, Montana. So I grew up in Eastern Washington. They moved to Stevensville, Montana, which is population 1,200 people at the time.
Yeah.
Love Montana. It's a beautiful place. The place they rented was on 5 acres, 2 ponds right by the Bitterroot River. And this house that was on that property, though, had 3 bedrooms. There's one for them, one for my sister, who's 4 years younger, and then one for my little brother, who's just a few months old at the time. So I'm about 12 and a half, 13 years old at this time. We moved in the middle of my 8th grade year. And they said, Erik, you live in the garage. I literally had this plastic tarp at the end of my bed that separated my bed from the truck that pulled in. Luckily, I had a fireplace on my half of the garage that would keep me semi-warm.
Yeah, it gets cold in Montana.
Yeah, right. So it would get really cold out there. I remember, being under like 10 layers of blankets just to try to stay warm while I was sleeping out there. And the abuse continued. It was further away from police, so they wouldn't show up as quickly. Right. And so there was one night where I was 13 years old. I was brushing my teeth. They came home arguing. Wasn't anything different than any other night. But as I was brushing my teeth, and I believe that it was God telling me, dude, you got to look around, take a look and see what's going on. So the way that the house was set up was behind me was the kitchen to the pantry to the garage door where I was at. And so as I turned around the corner, I see him on top of my mom in that pantry area. And he's just one punch of the boom, 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 hitting her in the face. I'm like, man, I got to get this guy off. So I walked up and I grabbed a cast iron pan out of the cupboard behind him, and I swung as hard as I could, and I split the back of his head open. And he turned around and he said, what the? And as he said that, I took another swing and I split his forehead open. Still didn't knock him out. He was very drunk. So probably felt a pretty good headache the next day.
Yeah, the next day.
Right. He stood up over me and he was starting to yell, and he's bleeding down his face. My mom jumps up, lands like 6 punches in a row, and blood splatting on the wall. I mean, it's crazy. Cops show up, take him to jail. My mom doesn't press charges. I had 3 months left of my freshman year of high school at this time. And my mom decides the smart thing to do was kick me out for beating that dude up. So I got kicked out of the house, and I went and stayed with my friend Forrest and his dad. And I slept on a hardwood floor for the rest of the 3 months of my freshman year. And that really set me on this path of destruction for the next 10 years of my life.
Yeah. I mean, just to sum it up for everybody. I mean, we're talking, I know drinking was involved, drugs were involved, going to jail at least once, right?
Yeah, I was in jail at 18.
Yeah.
And got into a lot of trouble, and I was smoking pot before school, after school. I was taking basically any drugs you could think of, hallucinogens, things like that. And then I got kicked out 2 weeks out because I went back to live with my dad. And so 2 weeks after I graduated high school, I woke up to a Post-it note that said, you can't comply with house rules. You have 48 hours to get out. So I packed my stuff up and basically slept on whatever floor I could stay on. I slept with some family members, slept with some friends in their houses and stuff like that. But between the ages of 18 and 21, I moved 21 times, living off of credit cards and barely surviving and not keeping jobs. I was changing jobs every 3 or 4 months. And then, by the time I'm 21, I was $28,000 in debt and had to file bankruptcy.
Yeah. And it's like, how do you climb out of that? And you did. That's, so your past, it wasn't the nail in the coffin for you. It was
right.
Life is harsh, and you had a piece of life that was very harsh. And thank you, by the way, for sharing all this with us.
Yeah.
And then something comes along and starts to give you hope. What was that?
It was a string of events got me to the hope, right? And so I ended up working for Universal Records, and I was doing the concert rock star thing. I don't know how to play anything, but I was doing the business side of stuff. But I got laid off my 1-year anniversary, and I was really depressed after that. It was during the Napster days, if people remember Napster, right?
Yes.
Right. So
the end of music as we know it.
Totally. Right. Yeah.
Right?
So, and I was just a low man on a totem pole. So I got laid off with a few other people, but, so I started working at Starbucks, and I was working at night. I was the night manager. So I'd get off work and go get my 6-pack of beer and go to my ghetto apartment and drink myself to sleep every night. And I didn't have any friends. I was really depressed. And this girl, I remember her coming into Starbucks a few times to my store. She doesn't drink any coffee. She was in there studying. And one night she came in and she said, "Hey, we've got this cool college age event down at our church. Would you be interested in going?" And I hadn't even thought I hadn't walked with Christ for a long time. I hadn't even thought about God for a long time. I was just living my own terms. And that's the reason that I was at, right? That's the reason that I was there in that position. But yeah, I said, you know what? Absolutely. Let's go. So I said, what time? So we go down there later on that week. And I ended up knowing all these guys from the other side of the state. I was living in Seattle at this time. So, I ended up running into dudes that I went to college with for like a year. I went to college briefly and didn't pay attention, but so I saw these guys and it was like, dude, I haven't seen you in 5 years, man. I haven't seen you in 7 years. Like this weird kind of connection. And I think God was planting a seed in that moment, because a month later, it was Easter 2004. I was managing a band. We went out and we played a concert, and I woke up Easter morning in my buddy's basement, surrounded by probably 15 other dudes that were just, are all passed out. And in that moment, I felt God extremely clear. Man, he's saying, dude, you're going down this path that's going to end your life real quick. You got to make some changes. And I decided in that moment, I gave my life to Christ right there in my buddy's basement. And I called that girl up and I got her voicemail. I said, "Hey, thanks for inviting me to that church event. Hopefully I'll see you at the store sometime." And a month later, we're dating now. We've been married for almost 17 years.
Wow. Could you imagine if you're that guy working at Starbucks who said, "Hey, sorry, miss, if you're not going to buy anything, you got to get out of here."
Right. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think God and I, to this day, I truly believe that she was an angel that was sent to me from God. Yeah. And it's just, the interesting thing is her and I were actually both born at exactly the same minute. Different days, different years, but on our birth certificates, it's documented 1:41 p.m.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's not a world record. I tried to submit that to Guinness. They said it's not.
Yeah, I tried to. My dad and I have the same birth date.
Okay.
So we're 26 years and we're off by like 1 hour. Like I was
wow.
9:44 a.m. He was like 10:40 something a.m.
That's awesome.
Or maybe a little bit later, but yeah, we're off by just an hour or two. So like, man, poor guy hasn't had a birthday cake for himself since.
That's awesome.
Man. 45 years later, he still hasn't had his own birthday cake.
Yeah.
Oh man, poor guy. So I really love that you'd shared all this, because, there's somebody who's probably going through a layoff right now and having a hard time just finding a job. And I'm not sharing this because, there's always somebody out there with a worse story, but you can get past that. You got through a very tough season. I would almost say a crucible. Like life was, Dune just came out. So life was like a Arrakis for you. You were the Fremen rising up and being toughened by the life you were given. But then you were given this grace, this new life that takes you on a whole different trajectory. So now you're married. You have 2, I believe, boys, you said?
My oldest is a girl. Yeah. So 2 kids. Yep.
Okay. So you got a boy and a girl. So someone like me, mine are flipped. My oldest is a boy. Okay. And my mini-me is a girl.
Nice.
Yeah. I always thought it was going to be the son who'd be more my mini-me, but no, it's the teenage girl.
Okay. Yep. Mine too.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm not the only one then.
Right. Yep.
Oh man. And so, so from there, I mean, we kind of did this backwards of what I usually do, where I
Yeah.
usually have you tell your story first, then how you help people out. But I wanted you to kind of kick off with how you help people first. And then here's the, oh, wow, story that's behind that. That
Yeah.
these are the things that have built you up and prepared you for the life that you have now, to appreciate the life you have now. Um, and I think where I want to kind of land this is, you and I have kind of gone through a crucible. Now, my story didn't involve getting kicked out a couple of times. It was just a matter of seeing my dad struggle with depression and attempt suicide,
Wow.
and then being kind of bullied by extended family for about 3 or 4 years. And then from there, I drew a line in the sand, and things, well, they're still tough, but it started. There's like a gradual incline from there if you look back.
Sure.
But how do people kind of go through a crucible without putting themselves through an extreme like you and I've experienced?
And like I mentioned earlier, one, if you want to change in your life, you have to surround yourself with the right people, but
Mhm.
also it's a mental thing, right? So when I gave my life to Christ, I had to get out of that environment that I was living in, right? So then I had to surround myself with the right people, but then mentally I had to go, okay, I know that my past and other people's opinions do not affect my future. They don't determine my future. I can make a change at any moment. Literally, I can change my mind like that. And you just have to step out of that environment that you're in that's leading you down the wrong path.
Yeah.
And yes, that sucks sometimes, and it sucks to have to break relationships or break friendships or whatever, but you have to do it for you. And if you can do it for you, then you can get on the right path to start impacting other people.
Yeah.
And so, I think, what helps me is get in routines, right? Like morning routines, sticking to things that are going to continue to grow you, right? For me, I wake up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week. People are like, why the heck do you wake up at 4 a.m. 6 days a week? It's because my desire to be successful is bigger than my desire to sleep.
Yeah.
Period. Like last night, this is Saturday morning. We're recording on Saturday morning. I woke up at 4 a.m. on Saturday. It's because I want to get up and I want to like start training myself. I get up and I spend time in prayer and look at my vision board, look at my goals, and spend time in worship and start training myself in personal development and things like that. But I think if you're in this rut and you're like, man, I want to avoid all that stuff that Erik went through, right? I'm just stuck in this rut. Surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
Get uncomfortable and start setting up routines. Stack those wins. For me, when I wake up, if I open my eyes, I immediately acknowledge myself, like I acknowledge out loud, like, try not to wake up my wife, but I'm like, I literally say out loud, God, thank you for another day. I get to hug my family. I get to see my family. Thank you for another day. That's win number one. I jump out of bed. I make my bed. There's 2 wins in 15 seconds. I've already stacked wins in the morning. It's going to be an awesome day, right? We have to go through the day and go, are we having a bad day? Or are we having a bad 15 minutes, right? Did something happen at work, or someone cut me off, or I got a speeding ticket or whatnot? Like, is it a bad day or is it about 15 minutes, right? If we can acknowledge that and go, you know what? Life is good no matter what. Like where we're at, we are blessed. And God's given us the opportunity to see other people, to make an impact. My goal is to put a smile on someone's face every single day. Well, that's in person or on Zoom. I just want to wake up and go, man, I want to make sure that someone smiles today. And if I have the right attitude, if you have the right attitude, then you can change the world.
Man, yeah. Oh, geez. Just letting that sink in for a moment.
Yeah.
Take that, everybody.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so true. I mean, starting with mindset, you got to believe it can be done.
Yes.
If you can't, it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Somebody else who does believe is going to come along and get it done. And that's not going to be your story anymore. It's not going to be your life. Somebody else is doing it. And then they're just talking you into doing the things that they want for their lives.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that belief is very, very important.
Yeah.
And then the morning routine, so key. I mean, mine starts at 5 a.m. And I was starting to find, like, for the things I want to do in the morning, the 2 hours between 5 a.m. and 7, because at 7, that's when I need to start transitioning to get ready for the office.
Yeah.
It's turning out those 2 hours are not enough time for what I want to accomplish. I want to read more. I want to work on the podcast. And you already just kind of hit me with, 4 a.m. is a good start time. Maybe 4:30, but we'll work my way into it.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've read a book called The Perfect Day Formula by Craig Ballantyne, and it's an amazing book, but he talks about like that. If you're getting up at 8 normally, Don't set the alarm to 4. Like
Yeah.
do 15-minute increments, right? Set it for a couple of weeks at 7:45 and then 7:30, right? And then so on, and work your way down, and your body will adjust to it eventually. And for me, I get up that early, one, because I want to do all that stuff that I spoke about earlier, but it also allows me to do that without eating into family time.
Yes.
So I'm really big on family time and making sure that I separate that work and family time apart. And I still work a full-time job. So if I get up at 4, I've got a couple hours to get stuff done. And then at 8 o'clock, I start my real job. But then at 5 o'clock, I go, it's done. I try to shut everything off. I'm not always the best at that, but I really try to acknowledge and be just present with my family when I'm there. So at 5 o'clock, it's cutting everything off.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, at the end of not the end of the day, as far as the 24-hour period, but the end of the day in terms of our own lives.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to be on my deathbed wishing I put another hour in at the office.
Totally.
Oh man,
yeah.
I just got that report together for my boss in 2022.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Life would have been great. It's like, no, I would be thinking something along the lines of, man, if I could just be here with my children, my grandchildren, if I could just last long enough to meet my first great grandchild, those are the things that are going to matter to me. I'd love to see how so-and-so is doing, who I mentored many years ago.
Right.
I am not going to care about a TPS report cover sheet. I'm not going to care about how quickly I cleared my email inbox. I'm not going to care about how well now these are all good standards and professional performance type of deals, but being an expert at returning voicemail, not going to matter to me as much as how well did I connect with my wife, my children, my grandchildren, my dog, my cat, you name it. It's important to have those priorities in line. How much has just knowing your values made a difference in your life?
Oh, it's massive. I think once I realized that for a long time, I lived where it was the business first, and I have to provide for my family, which I get that we all have to, but I had it backwards. I was thinking, man, if I have the right job, if I have the right sales and I was putting in massive amounts of hours, I'm providing, that's going to make me a good husband and a good dad.
Yeah.
Right. But I had to flip that. My family now comes first. And what happened was I was working for an employer and they made me go on this business trip, and I missed 2 of my son's baseball games. I always said I would never miss a baseball game. Mm-hmm. And I missed those 2 games, and it hit me so hard. I was so mad that I had to work for somebody that forced me to go on a trip, that I said, man, I work for a new employer now. And I set my own schedule. I said, you know what? I'll be available from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific. But guess what? If my son has an award ceremony, or my daughter has an award ceremony, or a dance or a game or anything like that, I'm out.
Yeah.
They come first.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to, I'll let you know. I'm not going to ask for permission. I'm just going to let you know, hey, I'll be back in the office in a couple hours. Peace out. Like, I had to set my family first. And once I did that value, man, I think my relationship with my wife got better. My relationship with my kids got better. My relationship with myself got better. My relationship with my walk with Christ got better. And I'm also a part of an amazing men's group that we meet every week, and we go through the Bible and things like that. And just being around those guys, man, is just awesome. Yeah. And just getting encouraged and getting fed by those guys. So the values of, what you put in front of you, what's important to you, put that ahead of everything else. Mm-hmm. And I think that just makes your life way better. Like you said, I'm not going to care about some dumb TPS report. This week at my full-time gig, I lost a deal for $187,000. It would have paid me quite a nice commission check. And I'd worked several months for that. And my teammate, she did more work than I did, but they just came out of the blue and decided to go somewhere else. And I was like, what? Yeah. Like, that would have been a nice Christmas bonus, right? And then I think before, I would have been really upset and throwing stuff around, man, screw that guy, right? But I'm like, all right, whatever, God's in control.
Yeah.
I had to say
about that is, like, taking that mindset does a number of things. One, it allows you to pick yourself up even faster and go after the next deal.
Yep.
And it also allows you to preserve the relationship with that other company. So when they're back in the market again for another deal, you are on their radar as somebody they can work with. And whereas if you get mad, you're never going to deal with them again. And
right
now, what do I have?
Yeah.
The pity party. How have you seen, like, your kids' world view differ from everybody else's because of your priority on your family?
It's funny because I've been working from home since 2015. So they've seen me
Hmm.
pretty much at home their whole lives. Like I'm home. I wear shorts and a t-shirt to work every day. Like I never have to dress up, and I just work from home. And so they see me for breakfast. They see me at dinner. They only go to school Monday through Thursday, so they see me on Fridays. Like the relationship that I've been able to build with my kids, because they see that I put them first, right? And they both gave their life to Christ at a very early age, and they love the Lord, and they want to like make an impact. And that's a big thing for them. They just love to love on people. And so I love that. And they see me and my wife, like, they see us argue, they see us make up, they see us dance into the kitchen. I'll give my wife a kiss, and they're like, ooh, right. But like they see us get through the yuck, and they see us continue to move on. Like that was the big thing for us, was like, we said since day one, my wife and I, when we said I do, we meant it. There's never going to be a divorce in this family. We are breaking the chains of addiction, abuse, and rejection, and we're going to change the legacy. So our kids are seeing something mold into an amazing legacy that we're going to live, and hopefully they continue to live that on, when we're past.
Yeah, there's an intentionality behind that.
Yeah.
Because Liv and I, similar situation. Like we both came from, I think our parents combined for a total of like 5 divorces.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
Ours are about 5 too. Yeah.
Yeah. And they say like if one of the two spouses experienced divorce as a child, they have a 50% probability of divorce. If both have experienced divorce, I think it jumped up to like 187% probability.
It's crazy.
What? That's insane. So like you're talking about multiple marriages.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when you combine, both parents combined for 5 divorces, and you're like, ooh. And we just looked at each other and we're like, I'm in it for one time the whole time. And it's not just like you're stuck with me, but I want to make it so that you never think leaving me is an option.
Right.
In a positive way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. In a positive way. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so and we, and I think I shared earlier, like I had a line in the sand at 14 that I was going to change the trajectory of my family. If I didn't say it in this episode, I said it on an interview I did just the other night. So I guess I have to link that in the show notes. But I know one thing I've noticed for my kids, because like if Liv and I argue in front of them, then it's kind of an agreed upon expectation between my wife and I that we also have to share with them how we resolve that.
Yes.
If we didn't resolve it in front of them, but so we'll go to a closed room, resolve it. We come back. We're like, all right, you heard the hard part, where we were mad at each other. We got emotional. This is what we talked about in there. This is where we landed. This is what we promise. This is how we like you to hold us accountable. And this is when they're like younger, and they're like,
yeah,
okay, because it's all they know.
Yeah.
And the thing I noticed, maybe when they were both in high school, by the time they were both in high school, the thing I noticed that changed their worldview is that having mom and dad show up at school events for them is normal. Having us work things out in our relationship and then including them is normal. Telling them I love you is normal.
Yeah.
And for everything I just described, for their friends, none of that existed. And, for me growing up, none of that existed. And we created this whole new world for them where parents talk to each other, they talk with their kids, they put their kids in priority, but they put their own marriage relationship in higher priority, and they put their relationship with God on an even higher priority level. And that's their normal, and they see the benefit of that. And I mean, they have friends who get mad at them because, like, oh, it must be nice. You have a dad who shows up to your school events, and like, how's that bad?
Right. Yeah. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah. But then what I've also noticed is that I'm not just encouraging my kids and inspiring my kids by making them a priority. Their friends aspire to have the kind of marriage relationship my wife and I have.
Come on.
My son, his friends want to be the kind of dad that I was for my son. And it's like, wow, I didn't just change my son's life. Holy moly. I almost had to censor myself there. But it's like, now I'm influencing other youth who aspire to live differently. And that just blows my mind when I realize that. And it's kind of the same thing you are having an impact with, whether you've recognized it or not, is because you have this impact with your kids, their friends are noticing that they're different in some way and they like it. And then when they see that you and your wife are a big part of that, and God an even bigger part of that, they start to want that for themselves. So that's huge. Cool.
Oh, it's huge. And the impact, I think, just as dads in general, like can make a huge impact on other people. You know, my parents were divorced and that was a mess when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
One guy that I met when I was in first grade, his name was Dave, and his family, absolutely the best family ever. And to this day, Dave is my best friend. So 7 years later, we're still best friends.
Yeah.
But his family, they stay together. He's got four sisters, like, yeah. But like massive family. And I always looked at their family like, man, this is the picture perfect family. The mom and dad are like second parents to me, you know, amazing family. And that marriage, the way they treated their kids inspired me to be better as a kid and as an adult and as a married, you know, husband and having my kids. Like, they love my family, but even more so, like, they made such a huge impact on me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The importance of having those father figures and those other family figures, especially when we've been absent of that in our own lives growing up, that's important to find it.
Yeah.
Same thing that we talked about way at the beginning about finding people who mentor you and changing the 5 people that are closest to you.
Exactly.
All that influences you.
Yeah, totally, dude.
Huge. Yes. So I know folks can find you at erikallenmedia.com. That's Erik with a K. And you've got your 2 podcasts I highly recommend to folks. Whether or not you're an MMA fighter, check out Top Rated MMA. Check out the newer show, the Erik Allen Show. And if you want him to speak at your event, your venue, a training, he's got a link in there as well at erikallenmedia.com. Now, is there anything I missed as far as things you got coming up, projects, events that you're about to unfold? This is probably going to air March 2022.
Okay.
So
cool.
What did people miss?
Man, so erikallenmedia.com has got a resource page on there. My goal with the resource page is really just to give out information that can help people in their business, help people in their life. And I'm working directly with Brad Lee on Lightspeed virtual training. So we help coaches and trainers really make more money. We target 2 people who want to make money online and people who want to train better, you know, to their employees or things like that. I'm also recruiting people that want to join me on what we call the Lightspeed Army, right? It's just people that, it's not an MLM. It's just, hey, come join. And the cool thing is Brad Lee pays people commission for selling his product. You don't even have to sign up. You don't have to pay anything. You literally can just sign up and go, hey, I want to work with this guy. You get full massive training from him. And then he'll pay you 20% recurring commission for anybody that you sell forever, as long as they're a customer. Wow. And so I'm just like, I'm working like with my business partner. We're putting this together and we're just recruiting people to do that. But outside of that, like, the resource page has books that I love that have impacted me. There's websites on there. There's just resources for people that can like impact your life and impact your business. And that's really the goal with that. erikallenmedia.com and then the resources page on there. But yeah, totally love to connect with people on Instagram. And, you know, if I can work with you on your podcast or speaking or coaching or anything like that, and my programs are on the website as well.
Nice. And before we go, Erik, any final words of wisdom for those listening in?
2 things that I always love to do podcasts for. 1, turn off the news. Don't worry about what's going on in the world. Worry about what's going on in your world, right? Is it your husband, your wife, your husband, your kids, whatever, right? Turn off the news. I did that 5 years ago. It was the best decision I ever made. And then number 2 is, I think we just need to quit judging people. Like, in the world generally, like, there's a lot of judgment going on. It's not my job to judge anybody. I don't care who you voted for or if you're a masker or not, or vaxxer or not, it doesn't matter to me. My job is just to love you where you're at. And so I think if we just got into this mode of just not judging people and just love people where they're at, man, the world will be a way better place.
Nice. Erik, thank you so much for being on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, man. Truly an honor. This was a great conversation, man. Definitely one of the best shows that I've been on in 2021, man. So really, truly appreciate it.